You are with the University of Karate, and we've joined together, myself and Sensei Biddle, to again open discussion that we believe will be beneficial to those that are listening to us. We want to make note that we are very thankful for those that are making comments down in the comment section. Please continue to comment, like, and subscribe to all this content. We appreciate your interest, your views, your sharing, and also the fact that it's creating content that is creating dialogue and discussion among both students and experts in the martial arts. We'd like to touch on a topic that I think is going to cause a lot of discussion and also is a very interesting topic dealing with the dragon style or the dragon emphasis in the martial arts. Those that are familiar with the martial arts know that there are 5 Shaolin animal arts: tiger, dragon, crane, leopard, and snake. And these animal arts have been for a long time, whether through folklore or tradition, even popular movies, have been very, very mystified, and there's a lot of mystery. And we'd like to demystify as we examine today the dragon style, the dragon emphasis, and start looking to a small degree, opening the conversation on what some of these movements, what some of these principles of intent or action actually are doing to the brain, to the body, to the development of more advanced synchronized movement in the body. The demystifying of the dragon might be the title of this topic, but we're going to ask Sensei Biddle to share some of his insights and studies and findings on this topic of the dragon style and the dragon emphasis. Sensei Biddle, why don't you jump in here?
Okay, yeah, very good. Demystifying, that's a great word, because that's really whatever that means. Taking off the cover of the shroud of what's been lost or hidden or disguised or misunderstood, all that. And I want to say something real quick. A lot of times we go into a conversation like this and I get a lot of comments about, well, that's not what it is, it's not this, it's not that, there's so much more. So keep in mind here, every one of our discussions are all what I call introductory level briefings. We're scraping the surface on a lot of this. If John and I sat down and recorded a conversation I would do on dragon or internal arts, we could talk for 10 hours or more, and then we still wouldn't get it all out. So I've got to start somewhere. So that's what it is. This is a point, and it's open for discussion, obviously, all the time, but it's always, let's just call it always scratching the surface, because there's more depth that we'll dive into. We've got a lot of time to explore all these things, and that's why now we're coming back to one of them, like when we talked about the tiger, dragon, crane. So if we just take the dragon for a moment, in our last video we talked about how the movement pattern of the dragon, where it was hand and foot coordination, where it was stepping in unison with one hand, one foot, and then one hand, one foot on the other side, and how the movements coincided with the body and joined with the body in a more
biomechanically?
Yeah, more biomechanically, but a more unified movement pattern. It's not as disjointed, it's a movement thing. So just simply, and also when we look at the animal styles, and this is a general comment, and we look at tiger, dragon, crane, leopard, snake, Uechi-ryu is tiger, dragon, crane, and you see the presentation of some perceived animal style in the movements, and that's what we look at and go, oh, there's tiger, there's dragon, there's crane. That's true, but not entirely true. It's certainly, I remember, I keep saying to everybody on some of these videos, be careful of the magician. Don't look at the presentation and think you understand what's the sleight of hand. In the old days, when the martial arts, the Shaolin temples were running, there's a lot of spies, there's a lot of people infiltrating, trying to watch and copy things. So that was one of the reasons why the katas were developed. They're developed to hide the story, not tell the story. I mean, that's the reality of it. So when you're watching the presentation, that ain't the show. You got to see what's going on under the hood. So when you think of dragon, coming back to that, and you watch the movement patterns, and if you watch dragon-style movements, there is a common theme in those, and there's certain hand positions and certain body movements that are characteristic. But if you think about, and this is another topic, but I'm just going to skate on this a little bit. Early on in the Shaolin Temple, you had these 5 styles. So when someone went in, like when Kempo Uechi went in to learn Kung, Shaolin, he didn't pick Tiger, Dragon, Crane. They started him with something. He said it was San Chen, and he did that for 3 months, and then the opening for 3 months. He did the San Chen for 3 years, which you think about, who's going to do San Chen for 3 years? But what was that San Chen? What he taught us, what he brought to us, is what he called San Chen. But, and I know I'm jumping a little bit off topic, but there's a reason I'm doing this. What he brought us was San Chen, but Goju also brought San Chen. Uechi-ryu brought San Chen. All these Okinawan styles brought San Chen, but they all look different. So you've got to sit down and go, wait, all the same thing. There's White Crane, Zanshan, which is San Chen. There's San Chen in, excuse me. There's San Chen in Dragon style. There's San Chen in Tiger style. I have found it in all of the animal arts in China as well as Okinawa. So San Chen is a common denominator. So then when you learn this structure, and then the teachers say, well, what do you like? And if you remember, I don't know if you remember the TV show Good for You, Kung Fu with David Carradine, when he was in the Shaolin Temple, he was introduced and he was showed different masters that are different styles. This is Tiger style, this is Dragon style. He was watching these and he picks one. So Kamben's sitting here and he's ready to train and develop his art. What style do you like, sir? Well, I like this one. And then you learn these movement patterns, which are then stuck onto this structure that you have, which we call San Chen. And then everything flows from that. So Dragon is a set of movements that are to antithesis or present I'm trying to find another word for style, but to present something that gets the arms and the body moving in a certain way, and we call it Dragon. But what's happening under the hood? So here's a quick introductory topic, and this is where some of this overlaps. And again, the demystify thing is where a lot of it is going to come out as time goes by. The internal arts are just in mystique and esoteric, and the concept is lost. Now, we touched on that in one video, and that was that was an entry level, just talking about how the mind and moving really slow and breaking your mind down. But what's under the hood of how your system moves and what your body does is the internal art. It's the function of the body, how it moves. So let me give you an example. In San Chen, we have, John, remind me to come back to this as the 3 complexes. I want to come back to it in this sense. I just don't want to lose my train of thought. In San Chen, we have the double arm strikes, where you strike with both arms 3 times or more. Some styles do more or less, doesn't matter. So, but here's the interesting thing about that. What does that do? So, if you start getting involved into like neural research and how the brain works, because that's been part of my journey in my career, is to figure out a lot of this stuff and the inner workings, how it interacts with the brain. So bilateral movements like double arm strikes work both the left and right sides of the brain at the same time. And because you're doing that, and I'm going to get a little technical, but it won't be long. I promise it won't be long. While you're doing that within the brain, the left and right side of the brain is working, but the communication between the left and right side, because it's a bilateral movement, is carried through with what's called the corpus callosum, which is the white matter. Your brain has gray matter and white matter. The white matter is what encases the brain and is woven all through the different lobes and things, and it carries the signals. So when you do these bilateral techniques, you're actually strengthening the corpus callosum, the communication center of the brain. And that's a fascinating thing. Now, don't let me forget about the three complex. So now dragon. Here's a level that you have to think about within the brain. The way you move, the way you see, the way you process information impacts the brain in its various different centers. The prefrontal cortex, and you have all the different parts of the brain. I know what they are. I can't never pronounce them properly, so I won't even do that. It's just so when you're moving in space, and think of dragon now, and let's just picture the movement pattern where you're using hand and foot coordination, and also think about my comment about bilateral movements. One arm, one foot, another arm, another foot, and a sequence of movements. When you're moving in space, you have a part of your brain that is spatially oriented. It's how you know where you are in a room, which direction you're facing, your feelings of where the positions are in that space. Now, when you move in a certain way, in a precise way, like dragon, it attunes that spatial awareness and heightens your level of sensitivity. And that gets improved over time. So as you're moving and doing a certain movement pattern, whether it's now tiger or it's dragon or it's crane, and Lord, I have no idea how they figured some of this out. But experimentation and all this, we often think about we're intelligent because we have computers and AI and all this stuff. Are we? We don't think about how smart people were because they don't have technology, but maybe they were smarter than us. So they experimented with all these different things, and they overlay these movement patterns, and they called it something. What does that look like? Or let's mimic something, and what is it going to do when we do this? Now, they weren't thinking about spatial orientation within the brain and corpus callosum clearly, but they were impacting it. It is doing it. So as you move in dragon, you are affecting the spatial awareness. And that's why I like, we talked about this in prior videos, that's why I like circular movements, not straight forward, straight back, side to side. Most karate styles have a linear X or a square, a straight forward, straight back. Uechi-ryu, we come forward, we come back, we go side to side until we do Sansei-ryu. That breaks the pattern. Another discussion. Most Japanese styles form an H pattern in their kata. And that's fine. Again, it doesn't. But the circular movement pattern, the moving in a different direction, affects the spatial awareness of the brain. And then there's other systems that are involved. So, we can't do this today. But as you get into more advanced movement patterns, it affects the brain in different ways and brings out awareness and sensitivity. It strengthens the brain communication system. And that system is what sends all the signals throughout your body. From your eyes to your eyes, from your ears to your ears, from your muscles to your muscles, your breathing. All these systems are linked. Your emotional system, which is your limbic system, that's what generates emotions, and there's energy in that. Your lymphatic system, which is the fluids that flush your body out, which is encouraged by movement. Go ahead.
I just want to jump in and ask a question, because as I'm thinking about this, it sounds like, yes, dragon is an emphasis, dragon, there are techniques, but it sounds like almost when you're practicing dragon or having a dragon emphasis, it's as if these dragon techniques are actually developing your spatial understanding, develop these different parts of the brain, developing and helping different organs in the body. It's actually a body development system as well as a martial art. Am I on the right track?
Yeah. Yes, that's generally, let's call that the internal system.
Okay.
So when we start talking about the internal arts, we got to go down that road, but we're not going down that road today because we're just going to scratch that. But no, that's entirely correct. all the different types of movement patterns, all the different styles affect the body and the system differently. There may be an emphasis, and that's what you do or do not know. Like I said, Dragon emphasizes not that they all don't, but Dragon, in a specific way it moves, encourages the brain to do certain things. It encourages certain memory patterns and certain transmission patterns. It starts to hardwire neural pathways. And that's what repetition does. It hardwires neural pathways. So you always move the same way, and that does something. Now, I want to come back, because I did remember to come back to it, the three conflicts in San Chen, and this is just a low-level thing. So those three sets, there's three sets of movement patterns in San Chen. You have the single hand thrust, the double hand thrust, and the Waukis. Those do different things within the brain system, the central nervous system. Each do different things. One of them is one arm and the stepping, and then you have the bilateral movements, and the Waukis are bilateral movements, the circular patterns, the turning. Everything has an effect. This is where you have to go with this. When you look at a style, a tiger, dragon, crane, or a San Chen, you have to look at where we always, oh goodness, I don't want to say some of this. We always look at the self-defense or the fighting side of it, but what we're not seeing, and this is the mystic side of it, is what is it doing under the hood? And under the hood is the internal system, and we can demystify that, and we will as time goes by. But just for your own edification on this, when you're watching movement patterns, just ask yourself, what is that doing under the hood? And I'll give you one more example on that, and then I'm going to close on this topic. When you look at Tai Chi, you see flowing, soft, calm, relaxed. You know what you don't see? What's going on internally and under the hood. There may be a raging fire going on there that you just don't see. You think, that's not effective, it's not doing anything. Contraire.
Wow, this is going to be a real hot time in the comment section, I think, because there's so much in here. I mean, many times you start off as a young kid or a teenager in martial arts, and you're only thinking about the muscle development, the body development. You're able to do these kicks and punches and so on and so forth. You don't even think of the fact that certain exercises are developing the mind and developing the understanding and the ability, sensitivity of the body.
Yeah, I just want to throw one more thing in there, as John was saying. I thought of it because when you're thinking about the body, also you got to consider the circulatory system. What's happening with the blood flow and how that's moving through the body, and how are these patterns affecting it differently within each system?
Again, we're just scratching the surface. This is just to create conversation and to open the understanding and start thinking in a more demystified way of what these ancient exercises. We always say we're talking about the principles, the theories, the practices that all come together to make what we call the martial art. There's a reason why we say that, because there's a lot in these movements and patterns and teachings that create this thing that we use as martial arts, but they're developing a lot of skills, a lot of abilities that are basically seen deployed in a martial way. You are with the University of Karate. We thank you for joining us. Please continue to like and subscribe in the comment section below, as well as make sure you have the bell notifications on. Get every one of our videos, and please share this with someone. Again, you're with the University of Karate, and we'll see you again next time.